The mean HOA lady saw the car starting to burn. Instead of helping, she grabbed my father's keys and locked my disabled dad inside. The flames grew closer. "Rules are rules," she smirked, not knowing I was a military commander. Her smirk vanished when I pulled out my military ID and called for backup. Car alarms and screams broke the quiet Sunday afternoon in Oak Ridge Estates. I had just arrived home on surprise leave, hoping to finally see my father after 15 months commanding troops in Afghanistan. I was walking toward his house when I heard people yelling, "Fire! Someone help!" I dropped my duffel bag and ran toward the screams. As a Special Forces commander for 12 years, I was used to running toward danger. I had only spoken to Dad 3 days ago. After losing both legs in Iraq and enduring countless surgeries, he had moved to this peaceful community 6 months ago. Despite his disabilities, he remained brave, resilient, and stronger than anyone I'd ever known. When I turned the corner onto Maple Drive, I froze. A crowd stood around the community center parking lot where black smoke poured from a silver car. But what made my heart stop was seeing my father's specially modified van parked nearby with him trapped inside, desperately banging on the window with fear in his eyes. "My name is Major Christopher Mitchell, and this is how I almost lost my father to an HOA president's cruel obsession with rules." I pushed through the gathering crowd and saw an elderly woman trying to reach my father's van. A tall woman in an expensive cream suit was blocking her way. "Move. There's a veteran in there," the elderly woman begged, her voice shaking with fear. "Nobody touches this vehicle until security confirms it belongs here," the suit woman said coldly, standing between the elderly woman and my dad's van. "This is a private event for approved residents only." I knew right away this must be Patricia Winters, the strict HOA president whose welcome letter to my father had more rules than greetings. Dad had mentioned her in passing during our video calls, but I thought he was exaggerating. "That's my father," I shouted as I ran toward them in full military uniform, still carrying my service weapon on my hip. Patricia looked at me with cold eyes. "Stop right there. This vehicle is parked illegally during a restricted event." The fire from the silver car was growing bigger. The wind was blowing smoke and heat straight toward my father's van. Inside, Dad was trapped in his special seat, his face pressed against the window looking terrified as he struggled with the door that wouldn't open. "Get away from my father's van," I ordered as I got closer. Patricia didn't move. She lifted her chin proudly. "I've called security in the tow truck. No one registered this eyesore for today's event. Rules are for everyone's safety." "He has a disability," the elderly woman cried with tears running down her face. "I just went inside to get his medication when the fire started, and this woman wouldn't let me back to the van." Through the window I could see Dad trying to reach the door controls, but his missing legs made it impossible. The special accommodations we had installed for him were on the other side of the van where he couldn't reach them without his wheelchair. "My father is in danger. Now." My voice was cold and firm, the same tone I used commanding troops under enemy fire. "Your supposed father could be anyone," Patricia said, barely looking at Dad. "For all I know, you're using a disabled person to break our parking rules." She was holding his keys in her perfectly manicured hand. The keys the elderly woman must have put down when she rushed inside for Dad's medication. Suddenly the burning car's flames leaped much higher, making the crowd step back. The flames were now halfway up the car, and we could feel the intense heat from 20 feet away. Dark smoke filled the parking lot. "Lady, that car is going to explode," someone yelled from the crowd. Patricia looked nervous as she glanced at the burning car, but amazingly she still didn't move. If he had properly registered his vehicle for this event, we wouldn't be in this situation. I lost my patience. "I am Major Christopher Mitchell of the 5th Special Forces Group, and you are blocking emergency response during a life-threatening situation." I pulled out my military ID from my pocket. "Move or I will move you." For the first time, Patricia looked uncertain, but instead of stepping aside, she did something unbelievable. She pressed the lock button on my father's key fob. The van's lights blinked as the locks clicked shut. Inside, Dad's eyes grew wide with panic. "I'm securing this vehicle until proper authorities arrive," Patricia announced, her voice shaking slightly. "If you're really military, you'll understand the importance of following proper procedures." The burning car made a popping sound. We had maybe 2 minutes before the gas tank might explode. "Everyone back," I shouted to the crowd before turning to Patricia. "Give me those keys right now." Instead of listening, Patricia stepped back, gripping the keys tighter. "I know my rights. This is private property managed by the HOA. You have no authority here without proper." She didn't finish because a young man in an Army veteran's cap tackled her to the ground like he was on a battlefield. "Sorry, ma'am," he said as he pulled the keys from her shocked hand and threw them to me. "That vet's about to burn up in there." I caught the keys and ran to the van, unlocking it with shaking hands. The heat from the nearby fire had made the van's door handle hot to touch. Smoke was all around us, making it hard to breathe. "Son," Dad cried as I pulled the door open and quickly unbuckled his special harness. "I've got you, Dad. Close your eyes and hold your breath." I lifted him from the seat just as the window of the burning car shattered from the heat, sending glass flying everywhere. Holding Dad against my chest like I had carried wounded soldiers off the battlefield, I ran to safety, passing Patricia, who was being restrained by the Army veteran and another neighbor. Her perfect suit was dirty with black marks, her face twisted with anger despite the danger all around. "You can't touch me like this. Do you know who I am?" she screamed. I didn't stop until Dad was safely across the street, where I put him down on a garden bench away from the smoke. His wheelchair was still in the van, but that was the least of my worries. "Are you hurt?" I asked, checking him for injuries while trying to control my rage. Dad shook his head, his silver hair damp with sweat. "The nice lady went to get my heart medication because I left it inside. Then that car started burning, and that mean woman wouldn't let her come back to me." His voice trembled. "She said, people like me shouldn't be at normal people events." My blood boiled at his words, but before I could respond, a huge boom shook the parking lot as the burning car's gas tank exploded. Flames covered the car completely, quickly spreading to the ground around it. The fire truck sirens wailed in the distance, but they wouldn't arrive in time to save Dad's van. Within minutes, the intense heat had set my father's van tires on fire. And soon his whole van was burning along with his custom wheelchair, his medication, and all the special controls that gave him independence. As we watched our things burn, the elderly woman came to us crying hard. "I'm so sorry, Robert. I only left him for a minute. That woman took your keys from my purse when I put it down to show my ID." "It's not your fault, Martha," Dad told her, though I could see the devastation in his eyes as he watched his freedom burn away in that van. When the first police car arrived, I recognized Captain Reynolds from my high school days before I joined the military. "Major Mitchell," he said, surprised to see me. "What are you doing here in uniform?" "Just got back today," I replied grimly. "And I need you to arrest that woman for endangering a disabled veteran, theft, and blocking emergency assistance." Patricia Winters, who had been arguing loudly with neighbors, went quiet as Captain Reynolds walked toward her. She finally seemed to realize I really was a military commander. "This is all a misunderstanding," she stammered, trying to fix her messy appearance. "I was just enforcing our community rules when this situation got out of hand." "You locked a disabled veteran in a vehicle with a fire burning nearby," Captain Reynolds said flatly as he took out his handcuffs. "After stealing the keys from his caretaker." "I did not steal anything. I was confiscating an unauthorized." "Save it for your statement," Reynolds cut her off, reading Patricia her rights as he put the handcuffs on her wrists. The days after the fire were both terrible and surprising. Our van and all of Dad's specialized equipment were completely destroyed. His wheelchair alone had cost over $30,000 and was custom-made for his specific injuries. Insurance would pay for some of it, but we would be without proper equipment for weeks or months. But as news of what happened spread through the neighborhood, something unexpected happened. The community that had seemed so rule-focused suddenly came together to help us. The Army veteran who had tackled Patricia offered his accessible van with a ramp whenever we needed it. A retired engineer who lived nearby started building a temporary wheelchair using parts from his workshop. Even the intimidated HOA board members found their courage and called an emergency meeting where they voted unanimously to remove Patricia from her position. Most surprising was Richard Winters, Patricia's husband of 35 years, who came to Dad's house the day after the incident with tears in his eyes and a check in his hand. "This won't cover everything," he said quietly, handing me the check with shaking hands. "But it's a start. I've spent decades making excuses for Patricia's behavior, telling myself her need to control everything was just her being thorough. Yesterday showed me what she's really become, and what I've allowed her to become." The check was for $100,000. "I can't accept this," I said, trying to give it back. Richard shook his head firmly. "Please. You're not the first family she's hurt, just the first with the power to hold her responsible. I filed for divorce this morning and I'm selling our assets before she can hide them. Consider this partial payment for years of harm she's caused." But the consequences for Patricia were just beginning. During the police investigation, officers discovered videos from the community center security cameras that showed Patricia not only taking the keys from Martha's purse but also smiling as she watched Dad struggle inside the van. The district attorney upgraded the charges to attempted voluntary manslaughter when they found text messages on her phone to her friend saying, "Finally getting rid of the undesirables in our community. One less disabled vet to ruin our property values." The local news picked up the story and soon Patricia's face was on every channel. Former neighbors from communities where she had lived before came forward with similar stories of her cruelty toward disabled residents, elderly people and veterans. Her real estate company fired her, and clients canceled their listings with her. The court ordered a psychiatric evaluation, which found her dangerously lacking in empathy and remorseful only about being caught. 3 weeks later, as we waited for Dad's new wheelchair to be delivered, we went to the community center's reopening. The fire damage had been fixed, and a new ramp replaced the old stairs at the entrance, a project quickly approved by the new HOA board. What we didn't expect was the crowd of neighbors waiting inside, standing around a table covered with a sheet. Martha stood at the front, smiling through tears. "We couldn't replace everything," she said, holding the sheet. "But we wanted to give Robert back his dignity." She pulled away the cloth to reveal a brand new customized wheelchair with advanced features even better than his destroyed one. "Everyone in the community helped pay for it," the Army veteran explained, kneeling beside Dad. "Even people from other neighborhoods who heard what happened." Dad's eyes widened as he reached for the wheelchair, his fingers finding the familiar controls despite the new design. As he moved himself into it independently for the first time since the fire, his face showed a mixture of gratitude and renewed pride. The first thing he did was rise up using the chair's elevation feature, bringing himself to eye level with me. "Thank you, son," he whispered, embracing me. "Not just for saving my life but for helping these people see me as a person, not just a disability." As for Patricia Winters, her legal troubles worsened when investigations revealed she had systematically discriminated against disabled and elderly residents throughout her time as HOA president. The district attorney found she had blocked wheelchair ramps for 5 other families and had illegally towed cars belonging to disabled veterans who had valid permits. The judge showed no mercy at her sentencing. "Mrs. Winters, your actions show a pattern of discrimination that culminated in nearly causing the death of a disabled veteran who served this country honorably. This court sentences you to 12 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 8 years. As Patricia was led away in handcuffs, she finally broke down, begging for forgiveness. But it was too late. The community she had terrorized turned their backs on her. Her husband donated their mansion to be converted into a rehabilitation center for disabled veterans. The final statement came when the center was named after my father, with a permanent plaque at the entrance telling the story of how one brave veteran's ordeal exposed years of cruelty and changed an entire community. 6 months later, on Veterans Day, we gathered at the newly named Robert Mitchell Veterans Rehabilitation Center for its opening ceremony. The former Winters Mansion had been transformed into a state-of-the-art facility where injured service members could receive therapy and support. As Dad cut the ribbon from his new wheelchair, surrounded by neighbors who now saw his incredible spirit instead of his disability, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. What Patricia had intended as cruelty had accidentally created something beautiful, a community that had learned to see beyond rules to the people they were meant to protect. That evening, as I helped Dad into bed after a long day of celebration, he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Son, will that mean woman ever get out of prison?" I considered sugarcoating it, but Dad deserved the truth. "Not for a very long time, Dad. What she did was very wrong." Dad was quiet for a moment before saying something that amazed me. "That's good. Sometimes bad people need to be in timeout for a long time so they learn to be decent. And now her house is helping lots of veterans like me." Out of the ashes of hatred, something wonderful had grown. A community that learned to value kindness over rules and people over policies. And though the price had been high, watching my father thrive in this new world of acceptance made me believe the transformation was worth all the fire we had to go through to get there. I went back to my unit 2 weeks later, knowing Dad was finally in good hands. Sometimes it takes a terrible crisis to reveal people's true character, both the worst and the best of humanity. And sometimes, it takes a military commander's son arriving at exactly the right moment to turn the tide.